This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast. We are here to wrap up this fourth season of True Detective Night Country. This is written, showrun, directed by Issa Lopez. It stars Jodie Foster and Reis. We've been covering this for the last 5 weeks. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Zach. I am joined by my co-host for all our True Detective episodes, Zach Miller.
How we doing?
We're doing. So we got this show all wrapped up.
We got to it. We made it to the finish line.
We did. And our confidence has waned a lot in the weeks that have followed. We started off pretty decently. I think we both gave the premiere episode like in the 8s. Then episode 2, we still were kind of a fan of. 3 and 4, we really did not like. We thought the penultimate episode, we finally started to get somewhere. And I had a fear of this. I think you can go back and check the tape. But I was worried. I was like, like all these episodes, not only are we not getting anything, but they're like shorter episodes. And then the finale is an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah. So it's a long episode, which tries to wrap up a lot in that time. And by the way, everybody, if you didn't already know this, we are going to be going into spoilers. So if you guys, for some reason, are watching this and you don't want to get spoiled on the finale of True Detective Night Country, you have been warned right now because Zach and I are going to jump into spoilers. So, first off, overall thoughts, Zach, on the finale as an independent episode, as well as this season as a whole.
So the finale, I know we were talking about this a lot last episode, especially with how they built the structure of last episode. Our anticipations and our expectations were kind of true that they would pack a lot into this episode. So the finale to me was very rushed, I thought. I think everything started to spill out that was major to the case within the last 2 episodes. And I think had those leads been established a little earlier, and it wasn't as rushed in these past 2 episodes, I would have been more engaged throughout the whole season. And I wish there was a little bit more setup to lead us to these points instead of them just giving us a big reveal, because it felt like a lot of unearned narrative that we were revealed to, because it didn't feel like the detectives themselves were learning this information as much. It was just kind of like, all right, the mask is off. This is what happened. Let's just retell these events. And that's kind of what the finale did in a lot of ways. So what do you think?
I think so. I agree with you. And I do think it's hard because sometimes you want to go into whether it's a show or a movie and you want to try to give up all, like, you want to have trust in what their vision is and you want to kind of see out what they're going to do. With television, it's interesting because you have to elongate the story and try to tell it in different chapters throughout to get you to this end goal, right? My issue with those middle episodes, in agreement with you in terms of the way that they decided to approach sort of it was very rushed, the finale. Excuse me. But it was that those filler episodes where we were like getting a lot of nothing, like there was nothing to put your trust into because there was nothing that was interesting that was happening in those episodes.
Right.
So at the same time, you're waiting week by week and you're like, are we going to get any closer to where we need to be by the end of this? And we get all the answers by the end of this season for sure. And it definitely goes in an interesting direction, one that I don't think either of us probably saw coming.
No.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we like it, which I wasn't a huge fan of that. Of the finale that they decided to go with. I think that they tried to use the supernatural. Obviously, by the end, you can tell that they're using it sort of as a device to get us talking one way, and then they go in another way that it still doesn't even really pay off because of the fact that you're putting your trust in the creator and you're not telling a compelling enough story to keep us engaged. So I don't know. It's the season as a whole. I think that they could have structured things a little better.
Yeah.
And trying to squeeze so much information into the finale. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's a finale. You want it to be action-packed. You want it to have a lot of these things to make certain stuff pay off. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel anything differently by the end of it. No. And there were also scenes which are very controversial online but they had a lot of homages to season 1, you can say, and a lot of it is really just kind of picking something that they liked from season 1 and placing it in there, even though Issa Lopez has talked about a specific line of dialogue that she says had no correlation to season 1. It just felt like the right thing to put in the scene, which...
And what was that line? Like, what was the...
Time is a flat circle.
And that was relating to season 1?
That's something Russ says in season 1.
And who says it in this one? Is the Raymond Clark?
Raymond Clark says it while he's talking about what happens to Anne. Something in the
when they find him in the cave in this finale.
Yeah. We do get a reveal of Raymond Clark.
Finally. It took us 6 episodes to find him. I mean, well, 5 episodes, really, because the last time we saw him, he was seizing out in the lab.
Yes.
And he was going through an episode. But yeah, I want to kind of everything that you were saying, too. I want to acknowledge one of our comments on our episode 5 review. It's from one of our users, Terralon. She left a comment and she said, I get the feeling that they're going to try to stuff so much in the last episode in a short amount of time or leave a lot open-ended. Truthfully, it needed 2 more episodes. Hopefully the last step is longer. Reportedly, this season was originally a standalone story, but the writers had to connect it to season 1 in order for it to be greenlit for HBO. Here we are. So a lot of what you had been saying too early on, to like you were in our earlier episodes, you were explaining how Night Country was attached to the True Detective name, and this definitely didn't have to necessarily be, given the creative directions they went with it. Mm-hmm. But just to echo this user statement and your statements, I feel like by rushing all of these really important details and stuffing that into this episode, it wasn't like we had these details appear in earlier episodes. It was just packed in and it was explained in one episode. In other detective shows, and even like season 1, season 2 and 3, I'm more familiar with 1 and 3, but they give us those leads and those additions which lead to the payoff in each of those finales, like, so you feel a little bit more fulfilled, like, oh, okay, that happened there, or, oh, that was a false lead back there, this is what actually happened. The resolution for this, I wish that I would have been more mind blown with the take that they did on the conclusion and what happened to the men in the lab, had they led us down a rabbit hole of like, oh no, like Hank did it, like the mind did it, like if they led us to a place where we were so confident that there was more foul play, but then it was actually the group of women, I would have been flipped on my head, like I would have been like, oh wow, that was really cool. But instead, they just kind of show that it happened, and like these details, these weren't planted seeds earlier on in the season for me.
It kind of blindsides you, and not in a way that it's like like you said, like a payoff of a twist. Mm-hmm. We get all these very interesting flashbacks through cell phone footage and all the documentation and things for Annie K's death, and then you get the full death. You get to see everything that happens to Annie K, which I also thought was an interesting choice. But like, they're playing through everything that we've wanted to know for the entire season and answering all of the questions within like a 30-minute period. Throughout the episode, and I just don't understand the method to that. Like, it's not compelling storytelling. It's not something that like keeps me interested. It's just like, oh, okay. So I guess that's how that happened. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, there's not a real payoff to it. There's nothing that gets me, like you said, the twist, or I guess when you discover who is responsible for the corpsicle, you get a reveal that it is a group of women from the town that are natives, like Native Americans. And they're upset because they're aware of what happened to Annie K. And so they take matters into their own hands. They show up to the lab with guns and they hold everybody at gunpoint, all the scientists. They shove them in the back of a truck. They drive them out onto the ice, and they said that they let the motherland decide. And they were like, we gave them their clothes if they were able to make it out of there. And they were able to make that decision themselves, but obviously the motherland thought differently. Which I can appreciate that I do like the aspect, and I think I've been consistent in this message throughout the 6 weeks we've been talking about the show. I love the way that Issa is able to sort of rely on Ennis as a location and as an entity for what is to come and how dark and awful it is. And they show it even on the titles every episode where they talk about how it's like 14 straight days of night.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. I think that part is interesting. The thing that bothers me is that none of the townspeople are compelling enough to keep driving the story forward. And that's not to say, because Jodie Foster is a remarkable fucking actress. But there's something within that where it's like maybe she just can't write character very well, or I don't know. Did you have a thought process on that?
Yeah, my biggest problem from the beginning has just been this overuse of exposition and flashbacks. Like there were clearly these traumatic events that happened in each of our detectives' lives. Jodie Foster lost her husband and son in a car accident. I believe that's what they've been doing this whole time. And then Reis was a veteran, and then she now lost her sister to suicide in the previous episode. And she's dealing with, Reis is also dealing with Annie's death. Like they're all dealing with death and the elements and this dark, sinister nature that is surrounding the town, and they feel like there's a look into the other side through that with the supernatural elements that's happening. And then also the case that where Reis shot the murderer, and the I think is Wheeler. Is it the Wheeler case?
Yeah.
So, but they oversaturated themselves with flashing back. Like almost every episode, I think the last 3 episodes, they just did flashbacks, and they're like, oh, remember when this happened? And yeah, it's still bothering. It's like, why didn't they? 3 and 4 have been filler episodes. So if that stuff was so important to our protagonists, they should have showed some of that. You know, like I hate the cliche, like flashback to, oh man, this traumatic event happened to me and it's still bothering me. It's like, okay, like we've seen that before, you know, it just felt cheap and like a cop out, and like, obviously that's going to weigh on you, but at least in season 1, like you were seeing different decades of their lives. You were seeing all those events unfold, or you were seeing present day at that point. In season 1, you were seeing McConaughey talk about his events, but they would actually revisit them like fully. Like that they would go back to the story structure was just much cleaner, because they would go back to the flashback and they would reveal pieces to the audience week by week, and then it would add to the
They would
finale.
spend a lot more time in them too. They would give them room to breathe. They would help you as an audience member establish exactly your whereabouts, exactly what point in time you were in, and you're able to see the story unfold that way. Like you said, the flashbacks that they do for so much of the show, they're just oddly placed, and they also don't focus too much on it. And the other part is that they go back into the different world. So, like, did we get any explanation to that? Like, is that just what the town is like, and what they're trying to project is like, what if you're a member of Ennis, like this is just something that's going to get you at some point? Like, I didn't fully understand that. If there's anybody in the comments that can explain that to me, because I didn't get a reveal for that. I didn't really fully understand what they were going for that. And this show has had an issue all season of being very convenient in some of their things that happen.
Yeah.
One of the things you talk about even in your notes, which I definitely want to highlight, is they eventually get to Clark. The episode starts and they're in the caves and they're seeking out Clark, and they find him. They break through first.
So they break through the ice. They're in the tunnels for a little bit.
Yes.
And then they find the ice lab.
Yes.
And then they find Clark too.
Yes. So they fall down and they find the ice lab, which has all the stuff, and that was the site of where Annie was killed, and they find all the documentation that they have, all the pictures they took, and some other things. And then they actually find a lead up into the lab that we start the season on, which was also interesting to me. I'm like, okay, so they swept the whole entire place and they didn't find this. I mean, I guess I get it because it was hidden. But then the Native American woman is able to find it because she spills fucking water on the ground.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
Again, Very convenient. But they finally capture Raymond eventually. After a lot of other shit happens, he tries to evade them a bunch of times. Danvers gets trapped in a fucking room. Navarro gets hit over the back of the head with a fire extinguisher. A lot of like interesting action beats, whatever. They finally capture him. I did appreciate like how brutal like Navarro was with the torture and how to get the method out of him, because I did think it was something that it's like, oh, you really love this girl? Then like hearing her fucking die and you being the cause of it is going to make you fucking break.
Right.
But somehow Clark escapes. You have this written in your notes. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's crazy. Off screen. He escapes the lab. And the next time we see him, he's frozen to death.
Yeah. And honestly, I would have respected it more had Navarro just been like, he didn't escape. I let him come out here. Like,
and that's what I thought. That's what I actually thought was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But that's not what happens. Mm-hmm. And then Danvers blames her for the whole entire thing.
Which is like, how do you mess that up? Like, this is literally the person you've been looking for the whole time. Every other person that you found also conveniently couldn't reveal any details. The first doctor who had the frostbite, and Otis, the crack addict or the heroin addict in the other episode, you know, they go on their supernatural tangents. Very convenient. But suddenly when they find Raymond Clark, he spills his guts. I was like, okay, all right. Like, and sure, he was complicit in the murder, but why would he give up those details if he would like try? Like, did he really feel that guilty if he was on the run this whole time? Like, do you really like? I don't know. That just felt
I don't know. It's weird because at the same time he seemed like somebody that he was just trying his best to evade, and at the same time you do get the reveal at the end that he genuinely believes that it was her ghost that kind of came back.
Yeah.
So that I think kind of correlates and aligns, because at one point he's like literally just like, I'm gonna live down here in the caves because I'm afraid to fucking go up there and have to face what's there. You know what I mean? But there's so much there's so much with how he conveniently escapes, and then Navarro and Danvers are spending so much time just going out on the ice and not taking care of it. And also the power gets cut, right?
Yeah.
And we have no explanation to that. She says that he cuts it, but do we think he actually did cut it? Like, why is he trying to kill them? Why would that be his, you know what I mean? Or like,
I think the women cut the power. Are you talking about the episode 1 problem?
No, I'm talking about
when they discover Clark.
So Clark already has run out and now frozen to death. And they go back in, and Danvers is like, and he cut the fucking power. And it's like, but at the same time, like, why would he be cutting the power? First of all, if you're escaping, you probably don't have the time to go cut the fucking power. Yeah. While you're trying to escape.
Why would
them.
you?
Exactly.
What's the point?
So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But then we get a lot of conflict between the two of them again, and they're fighting, and it's okay for Danvers to bring up Navarro's sister, but it's not okay for Navarro to bring up Danvers' son, and that leads to more conflict. And it's just a perfect example of like why these characters, there's nothing about these characters that you're rooting for necessarily. Now, I do understand that is baked into the DNA of basically what True Detective is. They're supposed to be these shitty cops, and you're not supposed to root for them. You know they're going to do bad things. But at the end of the day, they still have like, I don't know. There's something about the way that those characters are written that doesn't correlate to, and it's hard because we've talked about this week by week. You can't compare it entirely to season 1, but I don't know. Help me out here.
I think it's because they can't choose a side. They can't be this. They're trying to be vigilantes, but then they're also at the same time trying to play by the book earlier in the season. Like Jodie Foster is trying to be a floor general and run everything herself by the book. And, you know, she's going through her trauma and stuff like that. And then at some point, in this episode and maybe even the previous episode, like they buy into that vigilante technique, and Navarro has kind of been a vigilante most of this show. Like she's obviously, she did that thing where she killed the past murderer, so she's been trying to cover her tracks on that. So she's been more of like a vigilante, but I think that they should have stuck with that and Jodie Foster be more of the lawful good, I guess, but she's dipping into the gray. You know, like Navarro could have just been the rebellious, like, screw the system, it's not working. Like, she could have been more of that the whole time. It's just very weird. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't add up to me how defined their characters are. So that's definitely a big slip for me. I don't know. And then, okay, so here's another problem. The suicide with Navarro's sister was at least like just cheap plot, like feel empathy and sad for her sister and Navarro, and like, oh man, that sucks. Like, her sister was like, obviously that's a terrible situation, but that had nothing to do with the rest of the plot. It would have been even cooler had they had her mentally ill sister go like into a hospital, and then someone in the hospital like spills a detail about the case. Then Navarro's like, what? That's crazy. Like something that circumstantially connects to the case through her sister. Because we spent 3 or 4 episodes of them just walking around, and she's like, I don't know if I should put her in the home. Nah, I'm not going to do it. I don't know if I should do it. Nah, I'm not going to. And then she dies. And it's like, okay, what do we get from that other than feeling bad for that brief moment? You know?
And you really do only feel bad for a brief moment, because then it's never even really brought up again until the end of the show. But yeah, there's, like you were talking about too, I agree with the way that Jodie Foster's character is written. It kind of goes back and forth, and you're not really sure whether or not you're believing that she's doing the right thing or she's trying to do the right thing. And then she gets Pete to kind of go to the dark side, in a sense, where he winds up killing his father in the last episode. And interesting enough too, that like, to me, the most compelling character of the entire series is Pete, and he's not even in episode 6. Like, he's barely in the finale.
Yeah.
Like, he's there to dump. And also, the only scene we do get with Pete is that he tells his wife that he needs her help and that he's sorry. And she grabs his face and she kisses him.
Yeah, after episodes of get out of the house, like, you're tearing this family apart.
It just made zero fucking sense to me as a character, that now she's just, because he's asking for her help, she feels compelled. And then she also bad, like, and then also, what does she say to him? She either says you're an asshole or I hate you after she does that.
Yeah, and then I think she says come back alive, or like don't get killed, or something to that nature. And it just felt like, whoa, you flipped it on its head for no reason. I thought you were kicking this guy out of the house. Meanwhile, he wasn't even cheating. He wasn't even doing anything wrong. He was just doing his job.
He actually was doing the right thing up until
the whole time.
Until he did the wrong thing, and then she kissed.
Yes.
I don't understand the method to any of that. There's, and I guess that's my overall thoughts on the whole entire season 2. There's so many little things that, like, in the scheme of like a film, or like in a series that's really well written and really well put together, the little things like that, they don't bother you too much if you can get past certain things like that. Like, not every show is perfect. Not every movie is perfect. There's so many conveniences and so many little things that pile on top of one another that are crucial to the story, or not crucial to the story at all, that they just throw in there to try to get some sort of reaction from the audience, that it means to me that the show, like, it just fell flat to me, like, entirely. The whole entire season, really, like, I just felt like it kept getting worse and worse as the season went along. Now, I thought the finale was better than a lot of what the previous episodes kind of provided. But I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot. There was one thing you had in your notes that I do think, I did think it made sense for Danvers to kind of put it together with the UV light, because she does have that story where he's talking about holding the hatch. And I think at that point, she had sort of put the pieces together in which, like, it wasn't a fucking ghost.
So she just investigated. Like, she's just like, I'm going to pull up, like, because they do that with forensics.
Yeah, so she was thinking in her head, like, at this point, she's aware and she doesn't believe that there's a ghost. And at this point, I think she's like, well, if he was holding a hatch, I should say, for an hour, then somebody, and I know it's obvious, like, he was doing that because he was terrified. Like, she wasn't there trying to open the thing for an hour, but she was aware that somebody, like, she was able to get something from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she's able to get that information. That's how they eventually trace it back to the group of Native women What did you think about that reveal? Because that was one where, like, I definitely wasn't expecting it, but at the same time, I was like, okay.
Okay, so I thought it was cool. I thought it was nice that they had a little bit of a twist. They had a group of people we didn't expect, right? My only problem with the the cover up part of it is they were like, okay, so they took pictures of all of the evidence, all of it, like the weapon specifically, the tool that was in the lab that had the star insignia that could have killed somebody. That if you take pictures of all of the evidence and you bring it to the police, their justification for not going to the police was, yeah, we didn't know if we could trust them. Go to the FBI, go to someone else outside of the community. Obviously, there's a situation with the mine and the influence that they have on the police. So they were trying to say, oh, Hank was connected to this. He was giving us bad vibes, so we couldn't trust the police. I get that. You actively know Navarro and Danvers are pursuing the case. Why would you have pictures of the evidence and not bring it to them?
Yeah.
So that to me was plot armor. That, like, you could have done that any point in any episode of this season and it would have been resolved. But now we have to save it till the finale. Oh, okay. That makes perfect sense.
And then at that point, it's like, how are you? And I guess I get it. It's like, all right, you have to wrap up the show somewhere. But it's like, if you're Navarro and Danvers, and you're aware that they have all this information, and they've known this the whole entire time, how are you not freaking the fuck out?
Yes.
How are you not like, do you understand that, like, we could have just died?
Yeah.
Out on the ice, we almost froze to death trying to capture this fucking guy, which you could have told us all this stuff already. And did the native women know that Raymond Clark was around still? I'm assuming they didn't, because then they probably would have maybe returned, but I don't know. Because it's hard to kind of
pinpoint the timeline.
I'm also curious on your thoughts on the fact that when they retell the story about what happened and what they did to the scientists, she says it's just like a story. And, like, again, at the end of the day, like, but yeah, they probably still could have been arrested for what they did. They didn't murder anybody because they weren't the cause of it, but they held people at gunpoint.
So that they were trying, like, I was buying into that part because it was like they were acknowledging the fact that, you know, they did the right thing because they killed Annie. So they got what was coming to them.
Yes, but if you're fucking cops,
like, oh, I agree.
That's what, like,
I agree with what you're saying, but yes. So yeah, I guess to your point, it does contradict itself, because if you're gonna search for the murders the whole time, then they're gonna be like, it was just a story as far as I know. Like, that was that line. That was the importance. It's like, I think it's just a story or a local legend that this happened. You know, like they're obviously going to put that under the rug. And that's what Jodie Foster does in the finale taping with the outside agents. So,
which is also kind of a homage to
the season
one with McConaughey. Yeah.
There's a lot, man. And then they have all these scenes with oranges, man. Like, what was that about? Like, whoa, come on. I literally wrote in my notes, enough with the fucking oranges. Because tell me why the oranges.
Wait, you know what was the worst part about that? She cuts the orange peel
into a spiral. Oh, wow. Got me, man. Oh, wow. Really did it in. Oh, what was she going to cut it into? A smiley face? Like, oh, my God. All right,
so you made something, you made a note of about the spirals, because there's no real indication of anything with the spirals by the end of the show.
It's all like local lore, local supernatural myth that they all allude to, and like it's everyone else's interpretation. There's no definition. But then there's one almost fossil looking thing on the ceiling of the ice slab. Did you see that?
Yes, when they look up. Yeah.
What did you think about
I don't even know how to follow it. Like I don't understand what they were going for. I think maybe Issa's message with the whole entire show again goes back to the fact that she wanted to highlight the mystery, the horror, and the intrigue that was based on this town and the people that lived in this town. And that could have been more of like an ensemble sort of thing in which I am so curious. I mean, we talked about this previously. She had 6 different versions of the script. And as one of our lovely commenters said, and I've said in previous episodes, this was not completely conceptualized as True Detective. It was conceptualized as a separate entity. They brought it to True Detective, and they decided, okay, we don't want Pizzolatto anymore, who's also been going fucking crazy on social media. And despite the fact that I'm not a huge fan of this season of the show, there's a big difference between what he said earlier on, when people were writing on Instagram, like, did you know that they were doing this? And he like had no idea, versus now he is literally sharing negative reception from people that are tagging him in the post. And like, it's just, it comes to a point where it's like, you're literally trying to highlight negativity towards another creative and another filmmaker. And that is a very interesting approach. And I think it's going to kind of put him in film and TV jail for a bit. I don't think people are going to take well to that.
No.
And there's a reason that he was probably let go from HBO, whether that was a decision that he made or that was a decision that ultimately they made. But despite all of that, I can appreciate if that was the story that Issa was trying to tell. And it's hard because there's so much that she can do if HBO is like, no, we're going to make this True Detective. And there's a lot that comes with that weighs on the shoulders of her, because there's so much that is baked into that first season that even seasons 2 and 3 weren't able to recreate. Like, we both are aware of that. A lot of fans are aware of that. Like, season 2 came nowhere close to season 1. Season 3 was a little bit better, but it still didn't reach the level of notoriety. It didn't reach the level of critical success. It didn't reach the level of audience success. So this one has been pretty split. But I don't know. Overall, do you have like an overall sort of wrap up? I mean, like, I don't know if there's anything other specifics we could talk about, because so much of it has been revealed throughout our conversation anyway.
Well, just to kind of like encapsulate the season compared to the others, I really liked the dramatic tone that they were going to with darkness in a dark physical place of the world, and the spiritual sense that, you know, there are dark things that will come to people. Like you were saying, the mysticism, the mysterious nature of like the murders themselves. And I really liked just the big suspicion of like what happened with the corpsicle in the beginning. I liked a lot of the setup. I think where the season fails for me is the structure and the delivery of the case itself. And I think had the structure been stronger, I would have loved it a lot more. I think Jodie Foster is great. Callie Reis is decent for the most part. There's a couple scenes where I wasn't a huge fan of, but I don't think she like diminishes the show for me. I think it comes down to the writing itself, and just comparatively to the other seasons, those seasons are slow. Like season 1, everyone can have their own opinion about. I'm going to put that in a separate category. Season 3 for me, I enjoyed, but it was slow and people probably didn't buy into it as much. However, I think the structure was better in season 3. So I think, especially with detective shows, you got to present your material strong and give us breadcrumbs along the way where you keep us engaged and you don't lose us. You know, like there are several points you lose us as an audience, and you're questioning their motives, or like why they would do this instead of that. They're detectives, they're smarter than that, like that kind of thing. So you don't want that to happen in a crime show.
Yeah.
Had that not happened, it would have been a good show. I liked how it was shot. It looked beautiful. It was great. But story, for me, it wasn't 100% there.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I definitely liked the setting. I liked the sort of environment that Issa tried to set up with everything. And I agree. It's shot very well. But I do think that besides Jodie Foster, I think a lot of the acting is just decent at best. And writing as a whole and the structure of the show, like you said, I wasn't a huge fan of. So.
Oh, also, I know we kind of mentioned it, but don't include the references to season 1 at this point. It could have stood alone, you know, like on its own.
You didn't need to do that, even if you were subtitling it True Detective. Like,
right.
You didn't need any of those things. And I'm very. Listen, you can only take it for Issa's word, right? If time is a flat circle is not something that she initially like or she didn't mean to pay homage to season 1. The only thing with that is like, if you are writing a show for True Detective and you've watched True Detective, that's like one of the most iconic lines from the first season. So it's like, how do you not? I don't know.
And the incorporation of Travis Cole and the Tuttle Corporation that didn't pay off. There wasn't a bigger thing at play after all. There wasn't an incorporation of Rust. There was those elements did not need to be there. It would have been the same show.
Yeah. We did get word right before we started filming. They reported today Issa is going to be doing season 5 of True Detective. Before we give our scores, where would you like to see them go next? Because so season 1 we have like down like the Bayou sort
Cajun.
of Cajun sort of thing. Season 2 is LA. Season 3?
Season 3 is like Ohio-ish, Midwest.
And then this season we got Alaska. So where do you want to see them go?
I want to see them come to Jersey, baby. I want to see Jersey. I want to see them knock off Tony Soprano, knock on his door. Where's my pulp juice?
Oh my
God,
orange
juice?
Dude. True Detective with Guidos.
It says some pulp. I like it with some pulp. That would be great. Mafia. Imagine that. But that's not mysterious, I guess. That's kind of straightforward.
That was so close to De Niro, dude.
It was probably between Gandolfini and De Niro. So that's for another episode.
All right, so you're saying Jersey. I think it would be somewhat interesting to do something in like Hawaii.
Well, that'd be cool.
You went Alaska? Give me a little Hawaii 5-0 action with True Detective. I'd be interested to see that. Dwayne The Rock Johnson stars True Detective season 5.
Oh no!
What is fucking wrong with
me?
No! All right, we can't do that. Let's go to scores.
Of this episode or the show?
We're gonna go overall. We've made it to the finale.
Gotcha.
Would you like me to start?
Sure.
I'm giving it a 5. I did not enjoy it very much. I've talked about it throughout the whole season. I thought it had a good start, and there were intriguing things throughout. The last episode does fill in a lot of the blanks, like we had said, but it felt very rushed, like we talked about. And yes, we get the answers that we wanted, but it was constructed in a way that it wasn't a very enjoyable viewing experience because of the way that they were kind of holding on to things. And you have 2 whole episodes of a lot of nothing happening. So overall, I'm going to go 5, which is a low score. And I'm sorry for the people that are fans of it, but I didn't enjoy this season very much of True Detective.
I'm going to go 5 as well. Yeah. Okay. I think it just gets very sluggish towards the middle. And then, like you said, good setup in the beginning, sluggish in the midpoint, and then they rush everything in the last 1.5 episodes. Like a lot of stuff happens in that last half of 5, and then 6, everything kind of unravels.
Yeah.
So very rushed, but like we said, had they managed a structure, I would have liked it more.
Yeah,
but
sorry, True Detective Night Country fans, but let us know in the comments what you guys thought overall on True Detective Night Country. It aired over the last 6 weeks. Issa Lopez is going to be back for season 5. So also let us know if you guys want what you guys want to see in season 5. Are there certain stars that you would like to see join True Detective? They're known to have a lot of people that are prominent with awards type consideration. I mean, you have Jodie Foster this season. Mahershala was in season 3. People like Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams in season 2 as well, and then season 1 obviously with McConaughey and Woody. So who do you guys want to see star in True Detective, and what do you guys want to maybe see with the next story they go with? Please be sure to give this video a like if you can. We are the Culture Wave Media Network. You could also subscribe to our network and our channel. We have a lot of different kinds of content coming your way very soon. You could also follow us at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, as well as on TikTok and Facebook and Threads. We're also at _Culture Wave Media and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.